2022 to 2024 was not the best year for us. It was a very difficult year simply because of a number of external factors. As you know, we in Kenya have basically rain-driven agriculture, and we also, on our estate out at Kiambu, we have dams. But last year was not a good year from a weather point of view, and as a result, the crop was not as good as it should have been. But also, you know, what we do is we sell our tea to predominantly the UK directly, Martin O'Cheng. In fact, there's a lot of marketing for us there, and we're very, very grateful. And one of the things that has really stood us in very good stead with consumers in the UK is the fact that we are so determined on our ESG, not just simply reporting, but practice. If you actually get your report, we do it digitally because we want to save our trees. But if you look from page 77 to 84, you'll see our carbon efficiency, and you know, it's impressive. And you know, obviously those 1,400,000 trees in Sotik, together with the trees in Mwega and also in Kiambu, they're obviously absorbing a lot of carbon, but all the tea that we grow is also doing that, and all the coffee that we grow, and all the macadamia trees and the avocado trees are doing exactly the same. So we're really, you know, we hope to end up at least carbon neutral, but also we hope to end up carbon positive, that we're a sink for carbon. But also, don't forget, in order to get our products to our markets, the best way is by sea to up the Red Sea through the Suez Canal. And as you know, the Houthis a couple of weeks ago sank 2 ships there. So the traffic through the Suez Canal is very, very limited. In fact, Martin has actually negotiated with a small Italian vessel that they're taking some of our produce through the Suez Canal to Europe. If you have to go around the Cape of Good Hope, down through Cape Town and so on, it's going to extend the period that we have. Instead of it being 24 days, it goes up to 60 days. And getting avocado in, you know, in Europe after 60 days, well, there's a real problem in doing that. But also, we have to keep in mind that I don't want to get into politics here, but you know, sometimes our politicians do things which are not for the best for Kenya. What happens there is that there's a very big oversupply. A warehouse is full of 120 million kilos of tea in Mombasa because it was laid down in the law that tea should not be sold at less than $2.30 a kilo. And the result is that a lot of the tea went to the auction, it was just brought back, and we never sold it. But, well, you know, we're actually on a road to recovery this year. It's not as if it's easy. Why do I say that? Because firstly, you know, we want to get macadamia nuts in shell, and then we remove the shell, and then we have very good customers all over the world, but there's a shortage. And this was because the ban on exporting nuts in shell was actually, you know, lifted, and the result is that we didn't have enough nuts in shell to actually process. So the macadamia business has suffered a bit from that. Avocado, I mentioned the travel time from here to Europe, and also Peru and South America, Mexico as well. They take advantage of the difficulties of that, and they get fruit, avocados, into Europe very, very cheaply. And the result is that it's very difficult to compete with them. But anyway, we're doing everything we can, and under the wise leadership of Martin, we're making progress in all of those places. So just to talk a little bit about what we're doing for the Sustainable Development Goals. And you know, in this case here, we've got to remember that when we're talking about ESG, E obviously applies to the environment. and we're very conscious about that, about not only our carbon emissions, but also the soil, so that you're getting the very best product when you drink tea from Sasini. And if you ever drink any other tea, come to me afterwards and I'll beat you over the head. But, and also Sasini coffee. And, you know, I always try to, in a restaurant, the only thing is, again, one of my past students, Melvin, Flora Mutahi actually runs Melvin Tea, and we got a little bit of competition there. That's only in the local market. Obviously, she's not exporting. We are in a very, very major way. And when you look at the market in the UK, they spent last year £300 million on tea, 58% of which came from Kenya. And thanks to Martin's trips there, a lot of that tea is actually from Sasini. So, you know, when we talk about business resilience, we're talking about sustainability. Obviously, the E is the environment, but S is another very important factor for us. What we're trying to do is we're trying to pay our workers a living wage rather than a minimum wage. And again, Martin is leading the way in that. So it's something which, you know, I think many of us in Kenya have got to adopt, okay? You know, you get people getting a bonus of 230 million shillings at the end of the year. Well, what are you going to do with all that money? You know, distribute it, give jobs to young people. Let's try to make sure that people can actually, you know, well, get a job in Kenya. And the G part of ESG is our governance. And I can tell you that our governance in Sasini is, well, better than many other companies. We can't claim to be the very best, because maybe there may be one company which is better than us, but we're very close to the top. I hope I'm not sounding like Donald Trump in here. But anyway, going forward, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to expand our forest cover. We actually we are going into renewable energy. We've installed solar panels in Sotik, and they've saved us a lot of money. They've given us a very good supply, constant supply of electricity. And we're looking at every possible way by which we're going to, you know, use more renewable energy and less fossil fuel. We haven't yet got into electric tea plucking machines and electric lorries, but, you know, we obviously have got to look at that as well. And also, there's a deliberate shift in Sasini to regenerative agricultural practices. You know, to see how we can, you know, use our waste, possibly as fertilizer, possibly as fuel to fire our boilers, etc. So the thing here, okay, is we're here to try to get partners in this sustainability journey. And that's exactly why Yvonne was putting Mr. Odundo on the floor there, and making sure that he was actually committing himself to growing trees. But let me leave it at that point, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome, and I'm going to give you some very good hands in which you're going to be put, and so enjoy the meeting while it goes on. And I can tell you, we're going to really learn something from these young people who come up and make their contributions, young as they are. I was talking to one of them. She's a grade 8 student, but you can see that she's already committed to this ESG journey.